How does one get an internship with one of the coolest and most prominent companies in information security today, turn it into a full-time job, pivot 3 different times within that job to stay fresh and stay engaged, and where are we going as an industry? I had the opportunity to sit down with Ethan Robish of Blackhills Information Security, and he gave his answers and his story of his experience coming up in information security and working with Blackhills. We're going to get into the interview today. It's going to be awesome. Coming up. Hey everybody, welcome back to Simply Cyber, the YouTube channel designed to help you make and take a cybersecurity career further faster. Make sure you hit subscribe because we've got some crazy live streams coming up in the next few weeks that you don't want to miss. Now, before we get into the interview with Ethan and answer all of those amazing questions, I do want to call out real quick that the Simply Cyber Discord server is now up and running. We got 700 people in there. We're having great conversations. I'll put a link. It's absolutely free in the show description. Join the server. Come engage. I'm on there. Stefan Waldvogel's on there. A bunch of great people are on there sharing knowledge, mentoring, giving access to resources. Come check it out. Also, I just want to point out that I've got my book coming up on September 9th. It's publishing. You can pre-order it now on Amazon, but I want to tell you, use the code 25cyber and you will get 25% off if you want to buy the book, right? You can have a great career without the book. It's just, I wanted to point it out and make sure that you got that code. So now let's get into the actual interview. We're going to hop right into it. Ethan was an intern at Blackhills Information Security. He'll go into that. He translated it into a full-time career. He was one of John Strand's first interns, which is absolutely amazing. He talks about why it's important to stay engaged and pivoting within the company that you actually work at in order to take on challenges that are engaging for you. Also, we spent some time talking about, what is threat hunting and what is threat hunting to him. He's been spending some time on that, and he gives his definition and kind of the direction of where he thinks the blue side of information security is heading. So let's hop into. You went to school in South Dakota. Did you go for like technology, computer science?
Yeah,
And what
so
was
I
the
went
year?
to,
Yeah.
yeah, so 2008 is when I started college at South Dakota School of Mines and Technology, or SDSMT, or just mines.
Yeah.
So I started out as a computer engineering major, and then I think within 3 semesters I switched to computer science.
Mm-hmm. So you're going to school in or SDSMCT mines, and how do you get synced up with Blackhills?
All right, that one's kind of funny. So I think I was I was a freshman, first semester, and my parents were actually in town. And so we were like touring the different buildings that I hang out in. And like I was in the electrical engineering building, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's like a common area where you could just there was a couple tables and a bulletin board or whatever. And I don't know, we were just mulling around, like they were looking at the classrooms and stuff. And we started reading like the flyers on this bulletin board. And so remember, this is a electrical engineering building. So like it is a engineering college, but still it's like niche to only certain people. And then this is like, it was not a highly trafficked area. So this bulletin board, I don't know, it's just very specific people, target audience. Anyway, there was a flyer on there. It's just a printed, 9x11 piece of paper saying, I can't remember exactly, but it had something to do with hacking and all the Mountain Dew and pizza you could consume would be provided. So my mom actually saw it and pointed it out to me. And then I was like, oh, that sounds really interesting. So I wrote down the phone number or whatever and called, and it was John. And he's like, that flyer's still up? Like you're the first person that's called in like 6 months. he thought they were all down or whatever. And so my theory is like maybe he had more flyers, but this one was kind of in the corner, forgotten, and didn't get taken down or something. I don't know. But
very nice. So would you just call him and he said, come on out?
So I called him and he started talking about like what they do and like hacking banks and stuff. And I stopped him like, hang on, let me ask a question. Like, do you have permission to do this? Because this is my first experience with like computer security as like a career.
Yeah.
Um,
You're like, am I being indoctrinated into like a criminal empire?
right. Yeah. That thought crossed my mind. um, so yeah, he cleared that up and asked me some questions, whatever, and we set up a in-person interview. Um, or it was just I met him at a sushi restaurant. First time I'd ever had sushi as well,
Nice.
and we just talked about random stuff. I remember him asking me about rainbow tables, if I knew anything about rainbow tables, but I don't remember anything else from the conversation other than it was fun, and he must have liked me because he offered me an internship.
Yeah. So was this your first semester? So your freshman first semester?
That's when I saw the flyer. I think technically I started like maybe in the beginning of the second semester,
Hmm.
and
Okay.
say started very loosely because it's always kind of fuzzy when my start date is. And back then it was just John. Like he may have had some other people, other random internships maybe or something, but I mean he was
Hmm.
basically a one-man show. The only other people involved were his sister and his
Yeah.
wife, just as needed.
Yeah. What do you do at Blackhills? I mean, obviously you were an intern. Now you're a full-time employee. Can you kind of
Yeah.
talk about, I guess, what your career path has looked like? Because a lot of people are trying to break into the field or try to figure out
Yeah.
what a role looks like. I'd love to hear about it.
So I feel like I've gone through three shifts in my career at Black Hills. So the first, when I was hired, again, it was just John and I, and we were a security consultant firm. Like we were doing pen testing. So any and all pen testing skills, that we could win contracts for, and that we had the skill sets for, or could develop the skill sets for, we were doing. So web app pen testing, internal pen testing, external. I did some physical pen testing. Um, Probably forgetting some, but those are kind of the main ones.
Hmm.
So I did that for, I can't remember, a number of years, 5 to 8 years, something like that. And then I just kind of got burnt out on writing reports and doing kind of the same things again. So now if I went back, like the game has kind of completely changed from when I was doing it before. I mean, there is a lot of the same feeling, but like the technologies have gotten like deeper, I feel like.
Hmm.
Or maybe it's just a natural evolution of like the skill set at our company and the customers that we attract to, because we've definitely we started out, and I think we still attract customers who are kind of new in their maturity curve for
Hmm.
security. But we've also get customers that are like, oh man, what are we going to do to get in here? Like they've got everything.
That's
um,
funny.
so that was my first kind of phase at Black Hills, and then we started getting into threat hunting, and John started up a company called Active Countermeasures. It's kind of like a sister company um, to Black Hills, and the main product for Active Countermeasures is now called AC Hunter, and
Mhm.
so that's a software product that we sell, and it's yeah, it kind of got into my I was wanting to go back to my programming roots, and I got to do that and a lot of like system architecture type stuff too.
So are you one of the developers for AC Hunter?
So that was my second transition. So I've since switched from that to John started up another venture.
Okay.
Again, we joke about the number of companies he starts. He doesn't have an actual company for this, but a new offering. So as a security operations center, a managed security operations center, managed SOC for Black Hills.
Yeah.
And so I've transitioned to helping with that. And there's like a hunt teaming arm, I guess, to that, or a hunt teaming component that I'm really focusing on. So I don't do so much programming, although I do write a lot of bash scripts.
That's too funny.
um, but I am more focused on like learning, I guess, data science and how to wrangle all this data that we have and how to sort through it and find interesting things or anomalies.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you, I guess, two questions to that. One, you mentioned got burnt out on writing reports and finding the same things. Like pen testing as a career field is easily the sexiest one in our industry, and
Mhm.
there's so many tools and there's a lot of like training, and it's just fun and cool. It gets sensationalized by Hollywood, but do you like people complain about writing the report is the crappy part, but I've also heard that like, if you go into any organization and you can, whatever, pass the hash, like it's like the challenge is so low that after you do it a few times, it's not really satisfying anymore because you're just doing the
Yeah.
same basic stuff. Is that like, I guess, can you kind of talk about how a pen tester might receive burnout? Because I feel like the blue side gets all of the burnout, mental health focus, and no one really talks about the red side because it's so cool, right?
Yeah, I think it depends kind of how the type of person you are too, because I think a lot of people, they could just stay red on the red side and like never run out of things to do. I mean, there's always new things to learn. There's always new things to research. There's new rabbit holes to go down. You can get very niche specialized on the red side as well,
Mhm.
or you can go broad and like learn some of everything. So I think, yeah, from my perspective, and I've seen other people like this, so I know there are people like me getting burnt out. A lot of the we're seeing a lot of the same things with customers that would come to us, so there wasn't really the opportunity to branch out so much. Um, and I have other interests that I wanted to explore, and
Mhm.
it was just kind of a natural. I was very grateful that Blackhills has had the opportunity for me to move over into something else that I was interested in.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think people just get sick of doing one thing, but on the other hand, it's not really one thing. Like it's all about the type of person and mindset you have, because you can turn that one thing into any number of things. As far as like offensive side, like you could start
Mhm.
doing research and advancing the field, or write new tools, or just become an expert in one particular area. It's Yeah.
Yeah. So I hear you. So for those who might be getting kind of toasted on the rinse and repeat nature of their day to day job, maybe take a step back and look at what opportunities there are to maybe enhance a certain tool that you're using or a skill set or automate something or whatever, just to kind
Yeah.
of break the monotony, if you will.
Yes, definitely.
Interesting. So, okay, so to the same point, now you're doing more. It sounds like you're involved in the threat hunting piece as well as developing kind of the back end platform that does it. Can you kind of talk about like the current state of threat hunting and maybe how it's evolving or changing? Because it's not super modern, but I feel like it's a topic that isn't really well known outside of our community. Like the term, some people don't even know what it actually means.
Right. Yeah. And then I've found bigger companies where there's people who have the job title of threat hunter. And that's always a surprise. Like, wait, or they'll talk about this is the threat hunting team. Like, oh, you're big
Hmm.
enough to have a team now.
Well,
That's it. And then there's places where, there's one person in security and they have to
hmm
do everything. So they're expected to do IT and security and, figure out if someone broke in.
yeah, yeah.
um, so how it evolves, and I'm pretty new. I feel like in threat hunting I have imposter syndrome.
Okay,
For
yeah.
so
That just means you know enough. Yeah, yeah.
I know I've seen the edge of the mountain or whatever. Like I don't know, I've climbed one hill and now I see a bigger mountain. But so the way the way I've seen it is, you've kind of got two approaches, and there's probably way more than two. But so one is, all right, you've got a network. Now what? Like, what do I do? What data do I collect? What do I do with that data? Where do I put it? How do I use it? That's a huge problem. Um, and there's companies out there that are built like to solve that problem. So like Splunk is taking care of, all right, here's what we're going to deploy an agent, and here's the data that we collect, and we're going to feed it into our platform. So then all you're left with is like figuring out what to look for, and
Hmm.
you get to learn their platform, and look for cool stuff. You don't have to worry about like how the sausage is made, I guess.
Right, right.
um, or like Microsoft Azure and their Sentinel platform. So Microsoft is very heavy into like, okay, if you have everything on their platform or you use all Microsoft products, like great, everything can feed into Sentinel, and then Sentinel is super powerful with like what you can do with it. Um, I'm more focused on like the holistic picture, like what data can I collect, how can I transform it, where can I feed it to, and all the tech, like what technologies can I use, rather than just paying some vendor to like a bunch of money and then being locked into that vendor
Hmm.
to do all that for me. Like I want to utilize like open source tools and know what different options there are so that they can switch out and I can change them based on what what would benefit most for the situation. So I find that really interesting, and I guess that goes back to that was when I was on active countermeasures, like working on like architecture design and that kind of stuff too.
Hmm.
But it does mean I spend a lot of time and energy on the architecture and not as much on like the actual process and like the data science aspect of the threat hunting.
Yeah. No, and yeah. So I agree with you, and I feel like the tools like Splunk, even though they're incredibly expensive, I feel like from the business side, they see it as like, oh, I can stroke a check and we have a solution, right?
Yeah,
And like,
it's there's definitely value there.
yeah, right, exactly. But to your point, you get vendor lock in, and then you actually have to have staff skilled enough to use it, right? I mean, you can't just put someone in front of the Splunk terminal and like threats appear, right? I mean, you have to know how to use the tools and what to look for and all that. Um,
Yeah, or
y-
if you do get to that point where they're flagging, they've got a bunch of rules already preset for you, and they're just flagging stuff. So threats appear, but then what? They're not. We can't replace ourselves with a machine. So you have to go investigate those threats and know, okay, what is the machine telling me,
mhm.
and how do I determine like what's going on, and how do I investigate? So then that kind of touches on like instant response then too, but also
Yeah,
just more of the security mindset of wanting to take things apart, know how they work, and see how they work together.
so do you subscribe to the philosophy? I do, but this is a small minority of people that I know. But do you subscribe to the philosophy of like um, not trying to pull in all the logs and really trying to look for a couple things first and get decent at that, then start adding to it versus the more normal approach, which is turn on all of the buttons and feed everything in, and then now you have a entire buffet where you can go and choose and whatever. Do you have a position on those two kind of conflicting philosophies?
I think I think it just depends on your environment and your, I guess, culture and where you're starting from. Because if you're starting from nothing, you're probably going to get best outcome like easily quick wins from, hey, let's pick and choose what we're ingesting and do specific items rather than ingest everything.
Hmm.
If you are already coming from an organization that has like audit requirements or data retention requirements where you're already collecting everything, then things get interesting because then you can kind of pick and choose like, okay, I've got a whole buffet here. Like, what do I want to take first?
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I can't think of a scenario, although I'm sure there are some where if you're starting from nothing, you're not already ingesting logs where your first step is just to ingest everything. I mean, at the very least, you want to start with something that's going to be high fidelity and high value security wise. So
Hmm.
something like Sysmon on um, endpoint agents or like Windows agents versus ingesting your firewall logs, which is going to be a fire hose, and you're not going to find a whole lot of interesting things there.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. It's a good point. So what would you recommend for someone who's like either not in the field yet or new to the field and wanting to kind of get exposure to something skills based, right? I'm curious. Do you ever advise or guide people who ask you those questions about, oh, like I really want to get into cybersecurity. What do you think I should do?
So I don't get asked that a lot, but if I did, I would say, yeah, the CTFs and just all the labs and practical experience that's available for free out there, or for even just a low like monthly cost or something,
Hmm.
those are super valuable, because you can take a course or you can read up or say you have a skill, but if you can show like, all right, I've got this certificate from this, pretty well known in the industry like place, or I ranked such and such, or I had that so many points, or I've made it to certain number of challenge, like that shows like, oh, you actually did that.
Hmm.
And it'd be pretty easy to see if someone's lying. Like you just ask them a couple questions in an interview or something. But if you get that practical experience and like learn from that, I think that is super valuable. And I'm really thrilled that there's that much available in the industry.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you say that. Like, I just started saying it like maybe 2 weeks ago. I've said it like 3 times now, like publicly or whatever. Like I feel like we're really in the golden age of education and resources for cybersecurity people that is free or virtually free. Like, John does the pay what you can, that rotating series of classes.
Right.
Hack the box, try hack me. These things, they're free. Like when I came up, and it sounds like when you came up, like it wasn't even it wasn't even that the resources weren't free or freely available. They just didn't exist. Like it was like you had to know someone, or you had to like build like your own kind of cobbled together lab. And
Yeah.
it wasn't Cali, it was called Backtrack, right?
Backtrack. Yeah.
You just be like banging on something with very little direction or kind of clue, or
Yeah.
at least in my world. I mean, DEF CON still existed then, but I didn't know about it.
Yeah. There's definitely some niche places that you could find if you knew where to look. I mean, DEF CON being one of them. The videos. I don't know if the videos, when they started putting the videos online, but the
Hmm.
like conference talks. There's so many conference talks out there, and those are a hugely valuable resource too. I remember the sites that I frequented. I think it was hackthisite.org, or
Hmm.
yeah, and then Anti Online. So those were both like security sites that had Hack the Site definitely had like some basic web application like challenges, JavaScript stuff.
Hmm.
It was interesting. And then Anti Online, I think, was more of a forum, but I think they had some challenges, challenges there too. And anyway, that's kind of dating the era that I came through.
Yeah, no, that's good. It's good. Where do you think the industry's going? You have any thoughts around the direction we're heading?
uh, just trying to think, because it kind
More, yeah. Go
of,
ahead.
I think. All right, so actually, I had this thought the other day. So if you got a new company that you started up, you're starting from scratch, you've got to implement security. Like once you get to a certain point, like security becomes a concern. Like what are you going to do first? Like, if you're just growing naturally and you're not like a huge company already with tons of money, you're probably going to look at, okay, what turnkey solutions are out there? Like, so what vendors can I afford in my price range, and what can they give me? So people rag on vendors all the time, but like I think vendors are like what drives the industry of like, what solutions are ready made for companies that are starting up, or even if a company is mature and like they want to mature further, like, okay, they're still either going to look at their existing vendors and what new technologies that they're innovating, or like if there's new vendors, what technologies they're innovating, or they're going to look for people with skill sets and bring that in house. So I think a lot of it still is going to rely on like what vendors are doing. And John preaches on or harps on vendors all the time of like, it's almost a shame that there's like marketing involved with vendors, because there's grand promises, but then you look under the hood and it's kind of disappointing. So I think it's still important for people with the skill sets to like hold vendors accountable and show where the shortcomings are, and like look beyond what the marketing page says, the sales page says, to what this vendor is actually doing. And are they providing value, or are they just trying to ride on the coattails of some new technology or buzzword? So it's kind of a balancing act. It's almost like government checks and balances. You've got like the vendors, which drive like the overall average state of security, and you've got people who need to hold the vendors accountable and make sure that they're not selling snake oil, basically.
Yeah. Well, and it's tough too because like you said, if you're a small enough business where it has been a concern and now it does become a concern, I mean, is the first thing you do hire someone to be responsible? Because how do you verify vendor A is selling you a product that does what it says,
Yeah,
unless you have the the knowledge to even validate what they're saying is true or not true.
yeah, that's a good point. How do you evaluate products in the market? And I guess that goes back to like, I think it's important that we put out information, and Blackhills does the sacred cash cow tipping,
Hmm.
where they throw antivirus under the bus
Yeah.
or endpoint products. So, but it's not about saying like, oh, these are all terrible products. It's showing, all right, where's the line? Like, what can they detect, and what do they miss? And maybe probably most likely at a default configuration, because like you said, if someone is just coming in like new and they're hiring a vendor, they probably don't have the expertise to even evaluate it, let alone like tune it so that it's more effective. So
Right.
I think that the default settings are important.
All right. So Ethan, you mentioned that right now in our field, like skills based is kind of the end all. Like if you can show that you did the certs, did the CTF, you can demonstrate capability, and that doesn't necessarily have to happen in a higher education program. And right now, there's like a big kind of upheaval in our industry around like you don't need to go to a 4-year college. You could have a really successful career with some certs and definitely with skills based approaches. So, what are your thoughts? Because I have 2 masters and a PhD, right? So I'm all in on higher ed,
Right.
but I have a certain position on why it's okay, and I agree you don't need to have it to be successful. But what are your thoughts around the practicality, applicability, and utility of higher education in a cybersecurity practitioner's background?
So before I was exposed to the security industry, and people were, I think I was in high school and people were talking about college, like I think I was warned like, all right, after a 4-year degree in college, you can get hired in, your industry or whatever, but your degree didn't like prepare you for the job that you're going to have. Like there's going to be tons of skills that you don't know. So I think this just applies in general. Like there's going to be so much on the job learning no matter where you go. And the degree, it gives you fundamentals in your industry, and I guess it gives you some practical experience. It gives you, I mean, it depends on the degree program too, but technical writing, that's important no matter where you are. If you're in IT,
Hmm.
being able to communicate effectively. So I think there are valuable skills in a 4-year degree. And I also think, again, different types of people um, react differently to different types of environments or learning. So a lot of people they will thrive much better under a like guided program 4-year degree versus a self-directed like skills-based learning approach. So I think there are people that can be wildly successful at both ways.
Hmm.
And maybe the most valuable thing you can do is like know yourself and what's the best approach for you. Or I mean, you could even take a hybrid too. Like you can be in a degree and you can be doing fun stuff on the side, like projects, and or trying to develop skills that you are only touching on in your degree, or know that you don't have in your track. So kind of like your own electives. I mean, there's
Hmm.
there's open there's and if you like the college environment, like there's open courseware stuff too, so where you can watch lectures, or you can even join like a scheduled program for free from like some of these big universities, like Ivy League universities. And
Yeah. Oh
it's just,
man, so good. Thank you again to Black Hills. Thank you again to Ethan. Loved the interview. I appreciate it. Again, make sure you hit subscribe, hit the bells for notifications, because I have some seriously awesome live streams coming up over the next few weeks you are not going to want to miss. We're talking to DJ Diamond about CyberSN, a whole new paradigm on how you can find a job and not get burnt out on the application process. We're also going to be talking to Ken Underhill about Rapid Ascent, specifically around how the industry is moving towards a skill-based need versus more of a theoretical application or theoretical education perspective. And finally, we're going to be talking with Charles Finfrock, who is a career CIA field ops officer, and he has got some crazy stories. I swear, you're going to want to pop some popcorn and not miss this one. Okay, so until next time, stay secure.